Saturday superstars. It's Peps, and I'm here with the round 10 round review. And I can tell you what, we have got a cracking co-host. We've gone a little bit of Marty McFly. We've gone back to the future. We've gone back and sourced, let's just say he's been spoken about quite a fair bit as a co-host with the most. Him on stage very, very shortly. But the voice that you're hearing right now is the host of Lace Out, Chris Pepper, the 377-game superstar of the East Keeler Football Club. And it's great to have you all here after probably one of the most exciting rounds of football we've had so far in 2023. But joining me on tonight's journey is a man who, let's just say, we've spoken about. If you joined us back in the early days of Lace Out, you would have heard him once. We've gone back in the DeLorean and we've brought the love machine, my brother Marky P, back onto Lace Out because the people have asked for him and we've brought him in. Mark Pepper, the love machine, my brother, welcome to Lace Out.
Oh, good to be back on, bro. And also not forgetting the 90-ish game superstar who sort of only played about 70-ish games due to some creative registration work from the East Keeler Football Club back in the day. But, yes, my storied career ended about the same time that Paul Keating became Prime Minister. But good to be back. I'm just saying, last time that I was on, 2021. And we all know what happened in 2021. Dees won the flag. And I said Ollie Wines would win the Brownlow. And Ollie Wines did win the Brownlow. So I'm hoping that the magic rubs off for the MFC again in 2023. But we'll talk about that a bit later.
Like to say, Mark, there's plenty of things that you've rubbed off over the years and making suggestions and wins. Jules Julio is on the chat. Good to have you, big fella. Lots of people joining us already. So if you've got a question for the team, Peps and the Love Machine for tonight's episode, throw it into the chat. Otherwise, when you're listening to this on your favourite podcast app, whether it's your favourite application on a smart device, you could even be listening to this on a cassette tape, just in case you've done a bit of high-speed dubbing from your iPod to a cassette. However you're listening to us, give us a review. Tell everybody how awesome we are. And more importantly, tell your friends that they should be listening to the greatest non-club affiliated AFL podcast this side of the Westgate Bridge. Hey, big fella, I know that you went over to Port Adelaide last weekend. I want to hear about that. For the people who haven't listened to the show before, we got copious amounts of topics to get through. We're going to start with a ladder. We're going to do something called spinning the magnets. We're going to maybe splash a bit of cash. We're going to talk about some bags. And more importantly, we're going to get in and have a chat about the scoreboard, which is all about the games for this weekend. There was some absolute barnstormers and a couple of barns got blown down, especially down in Tasmania as well, too. So we'll have a chat about that. But big boy, first thing that we're going to do is we're going to have a look at the ladder for 2023 after 10 rounds. And we're starting to get a bit of splittage towards top, middle and bottom. Collingwood cannot do anything wrong. They are going to be in the grand final this year with probably the Brisbane Lions. Yadapulti, a.k.a. Port Adelaide, had a brilliant win over the Dees. And that's your top three. A game clear of Nam, which is us, Melbourne, St Kilda, Western Bulldogs. 2 games clear to Geelong and Adelaide Crows. Essendon outside only on percentage. Wallis also on 20 points. Then you've got Carlton, Sydney, Gold Coast, Richmond on 14. Massive announcement went live just before the show went. So we're going to get into that very, very shortly. Actually, we might even start the show off with that one.
Yeah.
WS, Hawthorn had a massive percentage boost. North Melbourne robbed at their own device and wet toast Eagles. I'd do a John Elway and I would defer from the AFL draft if I was Harley Reid. I would not go to West Coast. We saw what Melbourne did to Jack Watts. We are not going to do that to this young bloke over at West Coast. I would say, no, I'm not going. I'm going to take a year out and then come back to me in 2024, I reckon. Thoughts, feelings on the ladder, Mr. Machine?
Well, briefly, Collingwood, as you said, can't do no wrong. Attractive football. Always enjoyable to watch them over the past sort of 18 months. Brisbane, for a team that's second, it's sort of been flying under the radar a bit. But starting to really get us some momentum. Yarrapulti, did a big job on Big Yeah Nam, on as I'm calling him now, Yeah Nam, on Friday night. I'll go into more detail about those two. St Kilda, probably the flakiest 28-point team of the competition at the moment. Western Bulldogs starting to gather some serious momentum. Geelong, they're the Ross and Rachel of the competition at the moment. Will they or won't they? They're sort of putting both camps at the moment. The Crows had some really good momentum early, but sort of staggered a bit. But the Burgess effect, as we call it, I think will kick in towards the end of the year. The team that I can't pronounce, I'll call them Voldemort. Voldemort at ninth, but they played some attractive footy on the weekend, starting to get some good momentum. Wally up, Freo. A bit like Ross and Rachel, will they or won't they? Carlton, just, insipid on all levels. But, they do have the talent. They just don't have they just don't have it at the moment. The Swans, well, bit of injuries there. Gold Coast should be better. Richmond, well, Damien Hardwick, we'll get to that shortly. GWS, just they should be better. Hawthorn, we all know what they're going through. They're in the right path. North Melbourne shot themselves in the foot. And West Coast probably have no feet left because all their parts are falling off like a Monty Python sketch. I think that's about it.
And they are absolutely shocking. Hey, it's interesting though, Marky. As you were going through the ladder, the Port Adelaide boys have started to jump on. Funny enough, after last week, I'll get into that. Craigie Jones, absolute superstar from the Portraits podcast. Great to have him joining us live as well too. I want to get into the magnets. I want to spin some magnets, get them out of the way.
Yeah,
then we're going to have a chat about this breaking news that happened literally before we went to air. So everything is quite raw. I'll be reading quite a fair bit. But if you haven't heard, Damien Hardwick has resigned as coach of the Richmond Football Club. Now, we don't know if it's going to be right away. I don't know if it's going to be after this weekend. We're not sure. We are so light on information. We're only going by what the Twitterverse and a few other places are going to be saying. But we'll get into that because it is huge. It is big. It is toit. It is gold member. That is how shiny this news is going to be. All right, buddy, time to spin some magnets. Now, as the guest, as you are the love machine, what would you like to go with? Would you like to go with some 3 votes? Or would you like to get dragged? What would you like to go with?
I'm going to go 3 votes.
I'm going to go some 3 votes. All right. Where are you, Mr. Demetriou?
Thank you, Andrew. I am going to probably because
are you going to come out with your votes, are you?
Yep.
That doesn't work. I usually go first and then but okay, you're the love machine. You can do whatever you want. This
is just a disclaimer. Okay. and I'll back this up. 3 votes to the Adelaide Oval catering department because your bucket of chips at the Adelaide Oval twice the size of the ones at the MCG for $10. 3 votes, virtually a meal in itself. Just wanted to give a shout out to the catering people at Adelaide. There was gravy available, but I didn't have it because we were in a bit of a rush. But in terms of hot food over there, 3 votes.
So 3 votes to the catering at the Adelaide Oval.
Tick, tick, tick. 3 votes.
Tickety, tick, chip, chips. All right, first and foremost, 3 votes. I'm going out for 4 teams right now. There's 4 teams I want to because they're breathing life into a dead season. I reckon 2 weeks ago I said that the 8 was virtually locked in. The top 4 was locked in.
You did.
He's playing for the end, if you remember that. Well, Fremantle, Essendon, the West and the Bulldogs, as our German grandmother used to say, and Port Adelaide. Thank you very much for finally starting to do something in season 2023. They are playing some great football. Dreamtime at the G was simply an amazing finish to the game. Port versus Melbourne, a crap way to finish a game from my perspective, but for the football across, that's a Friday night game there for you, legends. Freo kicking their 3rd score over 100 points in a row. And the Western Bulldogs were a little bit sleepy at the start of the year. They were sitting in their kennel, not willing to come out under the blanket. But funny enough, as it started to get a little bit colder, their bite has started to get a little bit bigger. And those 4 teams excitement back in where others are falling away. So awesome stuff to see. Max King, how good is it to see the big boy after 10 weeks out, back after a shoulder injury, comes back and kicks 4. That's all we want. We want the best players on the park.
That's it. What more do you want?
Not much more. And by the way, they're the Indigenous jumpers from the weekend and also this weekend. awesome as well too. The question is, though, Mark, has been brought up a couple of times. Why is Sir Doug Nicholls' round go over 2 weeks? Now, my theory is so teams can play a game at home in their Indigenous jumper.
Yeah.
I don't know how one round goes for 2 weeks. Only the AFL could come up with that.
Yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense. But, yeah, they should just slightly change the name from Indigenous round to something else. I don't know what it is, but, yeah.
Rounds.
Indigenous rounds.
Part 1 or part 2, like hot shots. And finished dream time at the G. People on the Twitter sphere was going nuts on the chat. It was going nuts on the Lace Out page. It was almost a flashback. Tudor to Ablett 1994 prelim. As that. It was awesome to see. It was just mwah, mwah. And it's amazing. Will this kickstart, no pun intended, Essendon's charge towards the 8? Because apparently they play they have the easiest draw in the second half of the season. It's going to get annoying around our area, isn't it, Mark? All those Essendon supporters.
Don't get me started. We'll probably get banned. Don't get me started.
I'll tell you who will get started is
Lee Moss, just quietly. I'm not getting started, Lee, so settle.
All right.
Haley off, Ellingworth on. Bloody weakest piss.
All right, let's get into some stuff. My boys, if anyone read my posts on the book, on the face, after the Melbourne game last weekend, I was ropeable. Jamie the J-Dog happened to give me a call just to check in to see if I was okay. Craigie Jones on the chats checked in to see if I'm okay. I am okay, but I'll be venting a little bit later on, so stay tuned for that. But our Bulls, our so-called gun midfield, Viney, Petrarca, Oliver, got absolutely bent over by skinny kids in black, teal and white jumpers. And they also contributed together 25 clangers between them. Now, you can't have that from your gun mids. 25 clangers. Like that's...
Oh, yeah. We'll go to it a bit later, but on the night, they just got out-hustled, outworked, and they panicked. They Melbourne had this tendency to do these, panic kicks, and we just absolutely turned it over. We couldn't get the ball past half forward, and because we weren't switched on in the middle and got punished for it. And we got played Port.
Bent over, I would say. You know who also got bent over? West Coast. Now, there's not much more I could go about this mob. Like every week, I think they're going to be in the dragged Hall of Fame because they've been in it every single week. They had 29 inside 50s for an entire game.
Yeah.
I'll put this in perspective. Port Adelaide had 10 in the last quarter alone up until around about the 10-minute mark of the last quarter.
Yeah.
Like,
look.
When you're at school, you used to play half-court basketball? That would have been football.
Yeah, it's just they're a broken club at the moment, and
they are broken,
broken.
Emotional. Damn it!
That's unbelievable what they are. Apparently, they're going to be changing their theme song too. Mark, have you heard?
No,
they're going to be running out to this next week. Because they are an absolute joke of a mob. Hang your heads in shame, you spuds.
Still better than that.
Look how bad they're going to be.
Still actually better than their reworked Eagles song anyway. I prefer them to run out to that regardless.
No, screw the pooch. And Michael Voss. Now, we've spoken about Hardwick. Michael Voss, how good's this? Announced tonight that he, announced by the President Luke Sayers, that he has the full support of the board. Full support of the board. Do you know what that means? There goes his career. Gone. Finished. How many other clubs? I remember Brett Ratton had the full support of the board, didn't he?
Neil Baum had the full support of the board,
didn't he?
Yeah. T.
McKenna.
McKenna. Yep.
And that's Brown.
Brendan Bolton.
Something like that is simply
out of bounds on the full.
It is out of bounds on the full. A couple others as well too. I haven't got this here, but I would also say the fact that Mitchie Owens copped the knee in the side of the head as well too.
Yes.
All that. Just tough stuff to see. Tough stuff to
Yeah.
see. And one other dragged, not AFL related, but for the St Albans and the Hillside football clubs.
Yes. I did read about this.
AFL on the weekend to literally have to get cops down to escort players into the car. If you've been on the WhatsApp groups, the footage is out there. It's disgusting. Those two clubs should be banned, have their points taken away for the rest of the season.
Exactly.
That shit house? That's not what local football's about. And if you've got a problem with it, don't take it up with me because I won't fight back. But all I'm going to say is that is not what local footy is about.
No.
And, yep. These two
I think it's tragic that outside of just the generic sort of preseason local footy articles you get in the Herald Sun, like the EDFL or SQ like that. The only other real time that local footy's mentioned is outside of is a grand final or a punch up. And I totally agree with you that any club where there is a brawl that involves spectators has to have their points removed immediately, even without them actually defending themselves. If both teams have been part of a brawl that involves spectators, points are stripped. They go back to zero for the start of that season.
One club was trying to get into the supporters' team, the opposition players' rooms.
Yeah.
Oh, frustrating. So I'm just leaving it at that. It was just pathetic to see in a league that I dominated for so many years being brought to the news because of stuff like that. Shouldn't be around there. Okay.
Well, you know what they say about people that live in St Albans?
I know. They're flogs. Hey, Mark, where do you live?
St Albans.
Okay. Move on. All right. So one thing that I have to let everybody know is since Jamie, the J-Dog Wallis, left, we haven't been able to really go around with this particular segment, but we're bringing it out tonight, which is...
It's time for Around the Grounds with Laceout's number one newsbreaker, Jamie Wallis. Over to you, big fella.
Well, I'm meeting Jamie Wallis for tonight because he's not here. But if he was, he would be breaking the news that Damien Hardwick has coached apparently his last game for the Richmond Football Club. It has been announced tonight that he has decided to not coach the Richmond Football Club anymore. I didn't see this coming now. Maybe towards the end of the season, it was something that was going to happen. But it has absolutely blown up the socials. Like it's not often that we come up on a show where we have things to talk about, but something overtakes everything together, and it is massive, absolutely massive, to hear that he's pretty much walking away from Richmond.
Yeah, it's one of those ones that came out of the blue. I think about half an hour ago. I think he's obviously got to a point that either he feels his heart's not set on the rebuild. He's come at a time that he feels that he's done enough. Now the question's obviously going to be in overdrive about because they're playing Port Adelaide this week.
Whoa!
Right, and so the question's
two clubs as years. How good would it be if Port suddenly start to get a bit of a momentum and Harvey comes in? I got my eyes on you.
Pretty much, and so that's the thing that sort of took my interest when I heard that they were playing Port Adelaide this week, is all the discussion around Kenny and sort of what's happening at the end of the year. There's going to the scuttlebutt and the rumour mill's going to be, is Hardwick potentially going to be moving to Port Adelaide if it doesn't work out for Kenny at the end of the year? So watch that space for the next few months until the end of the season.
Mate, I'm watching the space on the chat right now because it is absolutely a corker. You've got Craigie Jones going, why couldn't you have waited a week? Jamie Wallis will be dead set. He'll be lubing up, I reckon, tonight. He'll have his hands on it, thinking that, imagine that. I'm going to have Kenny going, which he's been pushing it.
It's his wish. That's been his wish.
Been his wish. Hardwick in his hard hand, and dreaming of champagne showers.
Yeah.
He brings them to the promised land. It would be an amazing thing if it happened. I don't know if it's going to happen, but Richmond supporters, Donna J, she's just saying Port for premiers with a smile on her face. No doubt she will be absolutely shattered with what's been going on with this. It pretty much went around down. You'll probably announce it in more detail tomorrow, which is Tuesday. or the same day that you're listening to this. It's unclear precisely why Hardwick has reached this conclusion or whether he'll coach one more game or not. The rumour, sort of what we're getting on the Twitter sphere, etc., is that he won't. So don't hold me to that. They say that general burnout is a factor. It could also be that Richmond have been burning out of games all season.
Yeah.
And he just doesn't think that he can bring it to the forefront. Whoever comes in is going to, I would say, they will do a mini clean out, I reckon.
Oh, they'd have to.
They'd have to do a mini clean out, wouldn't they? If you had a look at their roster makeup, you know, Rewald will be finishing, Cochin will be finishing.
Yeah.
Martin, I don't know. He's not the Martin that we know, but he's still.
He's got another year too, Max.
Yep. You've still got a couple of the older names in defence.
Yep.
You know, Grimes is not getting any younger. Nankervis is not getting any younger. Vlosten's not getting any younger. What are you going to do with these guys? Are you going to do what North did and go slice and dice, Chenkanichi style, or are you going to let them play on? I know you need to have a bit of experience. It's going to be one to watch out for, big fella, because this has come, like I said, completely out of nowhere. We weren't prepared for this.
No.
He would go down as probably Richmond's, outside of Hafey, he would go down as Richmond's greatest coach.
Yes, absolutely.
Personally, I'd love him at the Dees. We've got our own coaching issues, and we'll have a chat about that when we get to it. Tarrant is another one. Jules Julio, thank you very much. Another one has been at the Park virtually since he joined them.
Yep.
They've got a lot of decisions to be made. Have they got someone in the wings? Have they got someone that they want to go with?
Well, there you go. Now with the domino effect of Hardwick, you start talking about Hinkley, you start talking about Stewie Jew, you start talking about Adam Simpson. The murmurings of Voss, which really shouldn't be there, but anyway, that's a different story. One domino falls down, and then until all those clubs sort of sort themselves out, it's going to be just madness in the AFL landscape, coaching wise, over the next few months. So strap yourself in, get the popcorn. See what happens.
Now, the other thing that you got to look at is that there's only one coach out of contract this year.
Yeah.
But now you've mentioned you've got Voss, can't be safe. We know that Hardwick's going.
Yeah.
He was definitely not safe. Simpson's definitely not safe. So there's 4 potential roles coming up this year when we had a massive turnover over the last couple.
Yep.
Just when you think that everything is nice and settled, like Nana's lasagna, 15 layers deep, the top burns and causes chaos across the board.
Yeah. So it's
fascinating, Mark. Absolutely.
Never ends.
Absolutely fascinating how this one plays out. Like I said, we'll put out more news on this next week. Caretaker coaches, nothing has been joined out. So, but tell us what you think. Write something in the chat notes right now as you're watching the show, or write something on the Facebook comments when you've listened to this. Who do you think will take over from Hardwick as the next coach of the Richmond Football Club? I love everything that he brings. You got to remember he's played in 2 flags himself, coached 3, so 5-time premiership coach and player. I lost 5.
Yes,
as a footballer.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So he's a very, very lucky man. And Richmond supporters, you can obviously, if you want to wear the black tape around your wrist or forearm tomorrow in honour of the great man, please.
I've got a question. Quick question.
No, he's staying at Melbourne.
Yeah, quick question. The quick question for the Richmond fans, though, should this discussion, not in terms of Hardwick, but around hanging on for one more year, should 2021 have been the year, at the end of that year, where they've gone, okay, we have to change tack. We know we're not getting any younger. Should this discussion have happened 18 months ago? Richmond fans, love to hear your feedback.
Well, sort of a hard one, Mark, because if you think about the end of 2021, they just won a flag the year before.
Yeah, I know, but
they got pipped at the post in an elimination final against Brisbane. Like, they were going all right at that stage. But a year is a long time football. David Salt's come out that Voss will be as good a coach as he was a player. You're
When?
totally a polar opposites when it comes to that. Voss is going to go down as one of the best footballers ever to play AFL football. Can't say that about his coaching. 2 clubs he's been at, and they haven't gone anywhere. All right. Hey, let's just take it up a step because we've got a Rising Star nominee for this week, and it's Josh Weddle from the Hawthorn Football Club is the round 10 AFL Rising Star nominee. He produced his best performance in a 116-point drubbing of West Coast. You know what? The boot starter could have got votes against West Coast on the weekend. Water boy number 6, water girl number 7, they could have got votes against West Coast. That's how bad they are. But he picked up 28 possessions, 5 contested, 7 marks, 495 metres gained, kicked 2 goals, did a do-si-do with a goalpost, had 8 score involvements. Pick 18 in the draft last year. I know a couple of Hawthorn supporters, they think he is an absolute gem. And I think you're right. They've got another one. Cam McKenzie is another one that they've got. They're going to be all right. They are going to be okay. Just like North, I think they're in a really good spot. West Coast, absolutely woeful. All right.
Yeah.
One other thing, big fella, that we've focused on the last few weeks as well too is our journey to the draft. If you remember, we're journeying the draft. We're following one young footballer as his journey to the draft, and we're following Jacob Grant. Came back last week after the Young Guns versus Vic Country game. He was in action Friday night, had a bit of a quieter game, so he's just going to be looking forward to settling up against the Northern Knights this Saturday. They were down for pretty much most of the game last week and came back to beat the Oakley Chargers by 4 points, and it sets them third on the Coates NAB talent or the Coates Talent League ladder. So he's going all right. His team is going all right. Everybody's entitled for a quiet one. Jamie had quiet years on this podcast. They're going to be better for it next week with another run under his belt. So get that one going. All right, big guy. Let's have a look at the games for the weekend. It all starts on the Friday night game, the one that you went to. So I'm going to get you to have your experiences and tell what it's like to be an imposter, a foreign entity, as I would say, a Mexican over in Adelaide.
Yeah.
Tell us what it was like to go to a game at the Adelaide Oval. Give us your thoughts, feelings, what you thought of the game, and then I'm going to give my 2 cents worth.
All right. Third time I've been at Adelaide Oval. So if you've never been before, get there. It's phenomenal. Like it's definitely the best. I haven't been to Optus Stadium yet, but I personally think the build-up is better than as you walk into the ground from the city and all that. I think it's actually better than the MCG.
Get stuff.
I'm serious. You sort of hang around the convention center. You walk over the bridge. There's just pubs and clubs just across the sewer drain. That's the River Torrens. It's basically a hop, skip, and a jump over from the city. But it's a phenomenal ground. To be honest, I've never had an issue with any fans. I've been to an Adelaide game. I've been to 2 Port Adelaide games. Had great banter with all of them. I think they love the In Excess song more than their actual theme song. One of the great joys was driving 9 hours to sing In Excess for 60 seconds. That was probably the highlight.
Every time I hear the dun 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 dun,
they love it. I know, but they love
a bit of originality, like Milkshakes by Khalees.
They love it. Honestly, they absolutely love it over there. Like after the game, we're all sort of herded onto the bridge they've built too narrow. Everyone sort of packed together, and there was this guy with a saxophone.
It's the best walk. It's the best experience on a.
But it was fun. The bridge is a bit narrow, but outside of that, there was like a saxophone player just playing In Excess at random, and everyone was jumping in, joining in on the bridge, regardless if it was Melbourne fans or Port Adelaide fans. But honestly, Adelaide Oval, if you can get there, it is phenomenal. Go there for a weekend. You'll love it. Onto the game. Melbourne. If this was the Mighty Ducks, Melbourne was District 5. We were playing the Hawks. We got smashed. We shouldn't have been as close as we were after the third quarter. Port Adelaide just dominated. We didn't turn up. Our clearance work was horrendous. There was no creativity. Port Adelaide, cut angles, kicked the ball inwards. No one went on butters, which scratches my head. He was just a class above everyone else. He literally took the piss on Friday night. He was phenomenal. But for a team that had a few outs, and for our team that was pretty much full strength, it was an insipid effort from Melbourne. And kudos to Port Adelaide, because they just kept running and creating contests, whereas we just, I don't know, it's that thing whether it's, no, we'll be right. You're sitting there watching the game, they got away, we came back, and it's like, okay, no, we'll come back, and we did. But we just didn't run over the top of them, and Port Adelaide got us in the end. Some shonky umpiring, but, taking that aside, they should have won. They deserved to win. We didn't deserve to win. And there's a few talking points out of that for Melbourne.
Oh, what talking points do you have? Because I'm about to go on a bit of something that I haven't done for quite a while.
All right. A few dot points and then I'll let you rant. One, our inflexibility when it comes to our game plan in game. So the conditions were, a bit dewy on Friday night. There was some intermittent rain throughout the night. So what was happening was Port Adelaide kept the ball short, look for a target long inside 50 so they could set up defensively from their half-forward line. So if the ball came back out, they were set up with the wall behind, their half-forward line. Melbourne, if we had the ball sort of forward of centre, our defence was horrid, but we had no one forward of the ball to run onto it. So players like Pickett, who was quiet, Fritsch, who was quiet, Spargo wasn't seen. Any long balls that went over the top, we had no one running onto it. As you mentioned before about Petrarca, Ola and Viney, 25 clangers between them. Just, whether it's arrogance or structure, I don't know what it is. They were insipid. Stephen May kicking to the left-hand side of the ground about 90% of the time. Didn't mix it up enough. It's a Melbourne thing. I don't know why that is. There are two sides of the ground you can actually kick to. And overall, just our general lack of desire to actually crack in. I think we just thought whether it was individuals thought someone will cover for me and get the job done. Didn't get the job done, and we paid for it at the end. That's it. Dot points. Over to you. Rant away.
Okay. I'm absolutely going to go a little bit because that's how I feel. I've been saying since last year, and I've been saying it again over the last week or two, Melbourne are the biggest false economy in the AFL.
Mm.
They have not done anything of substance since the 2021 grand final. They may have won 10 in a row last year, but they got pants in the back end of the season. Weren't fit enough, played people with too many injuries, turned up, half taped up, pathetic. You have a whole pre-season to adjust, Melbourne. Think about what you did differently. Think about what where we went wrong. Think about things that went right. We heard all pre-season that we were going to do things differently this year. We were going to rest players when we were going to be resting players. We were going to be playing people in different positions. We were going to be trialing different things. You know what? What is an absolute crock of because it just goes to show that after watching last week's game, nothing has changed whatsoever. Nothing has changed at all. You kick to the... My wife sits there and watches the games with me sometimes, right? She doesn't watch footy, and she sees Stephen May get the football, and she goes, oh, they're going to the left.
I know.
They're going down the left.
It's dumb. It's so dumb.
It is so... there's people on the other side of the ground. Have you heard of something that hates on your life? You know when you go in and you go into a bedroom and you flick the switch? How about we maybe flick the switch and go to the other side of the ground once in a while? What do we do? Something a little bit daring. Contested ball. Hey, guess what happens? It's okay to play a contested brand of footy, but if you're not actually winning the contested ball or getting the contested ball, you're going to get burnt on the outside. Go and have a look at the footage. Port Adelaide went, you know what, Oliver? You know what, Petrarca? You go and get the contested ball, but you're not going to be able to give it to anybody because when we get it, whooshka, straight down the middle of the ground to their players who have actually run off ours and made it 7 versus 5, 6 versus 8. They dominated us across the board. But guess what? Oh, here we go. There's a guy running around, Zach Butters. He's only had 76 in the first half alone. So anyone with a right mind, if it was the 90s, they would have gone, Lingy, to him. Cool him down. Bernie Vince, cool him down. James Harms, Pull him down. Guess what we do? Our team defence will stop it. No, it didn't. It didn't stop it. And it's just another example of Melbourne's stubbornness to not make changes within the game.
Yes.
And it's another example of why, I'm telling you now, we are not going to finish top 4. We will make top 8, and whatever happens, we will bounce out first week of the finals. We have, I believe in my eyes, a premiership capable list. But our coaching is bottom 6 at the moment. And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing again, and expecting a different result. And at the moment, we are not seeing anything different, and the results are definitely not going to change. Here's an opportunity. Cozzy Pickett, you're not getting the ball. Why don't you just go down and stay in the forward 50 and kick goals like you did? You kicked 40 goals year after year after year. Leave him down there. They do that with Elliott. They do that with Rioli. They do that with Charlie Cameron. But no, Melbourne has to go and change it all up. Harrison Petty, centre half back, played in a premiership. Give Lever the opportunity to fly across. What do? We move him down forward, throws the back half out. Stop being princesses and start playing some hard, proper football. Because I can tell you now, Goodwin's contract is up for renewal, I think, at the end of next year.
Yep.
I would not be rushing in to give him a new one.
No.
Right now.
No.
There's nothing that has shown me in the last 2 years so far that anything has changed.
Yeah, and they'll
just lack of it.
Well,
and it's when I can watch a club like Essendon and I can watch a club like Collingwood who've changed their game and the way that they play. Even Port Adelaide have changed the way that they've played in the last 18 months to dominate the competition, and we can't do that.
Yeah, and to see it live on
and JB Wallace, who's on the chat right now, with yours, bring back, we need more Neil Bullen. Dad'd be happy with that. Sign McDonald up for another 4 years, please. I thought Lever was an intercept backman. You're a funny man, Jamie, all right? Your club's done nothing yet, all right? So just chillax. It was 4 points.
Yeah. Just hold your horses,
really peeved at not being able to play our games like we did in 2021.
Yeah.
We haven't we've had a shock in 18 months. And anybody who says, look where we are, we've done nothing. And you're only kidding yourself if you think that we are a top 4 team right now.
No, we're not. We're 5th, 6th at the moment. And, purely because of, as you said, stubbornness, 100% agree. Stubbornness from coaching staff and just lack of smarts, like in-game smarts to go, let's, keep Cozzy as close to the goals as possible. So when the ball comes out of the contest, we've got someone who's quick, strong, who is smart, can, just simple stuff. And
defensive pressure in the 50s. I want to say, though, I want to focus on Port because I know there's a lot of people in the chat tonight who love Port. They were sensational. Butters, he was spreading everywhere. All right. Connor Rozee, he needs a clip behind the ear. Here's the problem. You can bump into Gawn as much as you like, but the person that retaliates can't do anything. It's shit. No. Tippity wouldn't be doing that in the old school days when I was rocking around for his keeler. He'd be waking up in the van with the shiny lights spinning on the way to Footscray General. I wouldn't have been really doing it, but Dan Houston, the horny boy, he's a man playing amongst boys. He was on the way.
Yeah.
He stunned me how awesome he was. Willem Drew, doesn't get the kudos. He played a fantastic game on Vine. He went to Oliver a little bit when Oliver was getting off the chain, etc. as well too. They were just doing everything. And the fact they had no Dixon, Marshall or Rioli sets them up for a really nice back end of the season. And what was most disappointing is that we had the opportunity with a team that virtually had no forward line, and we were taking the piss.
Yeah,
that's how bad it was.
And the conditions worked in their favour as well, with the intermittent rain as well, because it was Simon Goodwin says it's a ground ball game, which I don't get me started on that. But yeah, the ball was pinging around a million miles an hour, and with that, we just couldn't get into position. The way you beat Melbourne, in terms of scoring on them, you just do it with speed. You keep them moving, and that's what Port Adelaide did because they didn't have. It'd be interesting to see if Dixon played and if Marshall played. If they bombed it long, we would have covered them because they were out. They had to stick the ball around more and have the eyes lowered.
I
Go
agree
for the short
with that.
passes.
And we've got another 8 games to get onto, and I agree with that.
No, we don't. No, we don't.
We're coaching within the game, and we don't do that.
No.
And that's what if you sit on the outer, that's what we get peeved about. All right.
Yep, absolutely. All right, let's move on.
Rightio. North Melbourne versus Sydney. Talk about heartbreak. Their coach goes down, and you got beaten. You didn't get beaten by a team. You got beaten by an interchange.
Yeah.
We could not believe it. I was down at Keilor watching East Keilor versus Keilor in the first game of the first game between two perfect teams, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they went down backwards. So, disappointing. But then to hear this at the end of this game, everybody pulled out the phones, flicked on the KO or Foxtel to see what had happened. And if I was Port, I actually picked North to win this. And I was absolutely gutted. Good to see Mark's wife, Laura, is crawling around behind him. Obviously, he's getting some reward for his work on the podcast tonight.
When you work in the media.
Luke Parker was brilliant. Buddy Franklin did his thing. But, it's things that I don't look at it from a Sydney perspective because that's what we expect from them. This was the team we played the grand final last year. Mm-hmm. But I want to focus on North Melbourne because, some of their no-name players, Eddie Ford probably had his best game for the team as well too. He had 21 at 85%, 319 metres gained, 7 contested possessions for his first major game. So that's just put him in good stead. The Twins, the Law Ward, Warlord, George and the Cheezel, have they got 2 absolute corkers in those 2?
They do.
Brilliant football. Simpkin was awesome. You got to understand the hyphen wasn't even there either. Davies Uniacke wasn't even playing. So for them to be able to do what they did against a team that they hadn't been too bad, let's be honest, it wasn't going to set the world on fire. But it just completely flipped, and it might show how much of everything that had been going on with Clarkson was affecting the playing group. You have a fresh set of eyes come in, Ratton set them up for perfection, and they almost got the win that only one person in this room picked. And I was shattered for them to lose the way that they did.
Yeah, look, it was heartbreaking for North. They've been going through a lot, and unfortunately, just due to an admin error, they lost the game. But the simple fact is they've just, I think this week showed, despite the losses, is that they do have a nucleus of some really good talent there moving forward. And the future's looking pretty good. Like Hawthorn, they're probably just a rung below in terms of where they're at compared to Hawthorn, but they're on the right track. They just got to stick it out and get the games in.
Well, Bailey Scott has his best game for the year. Josh Simpkin gets back to where, what he should be doing week in, week out. But even from a Sydney perspective, Luke Parker dominated across the board, gets a 10 coaches votes. He went at 28 disposals, 71%, 18 contested possessions, kicks a goal, led from the front, and probably needed a game like that because I think he'd been a little bit quiet. Even Chad Warner, the director from Boogie Nights, he was even a hell of a lot better. He'd been really quiet this year as well too. So just those types got back on the park. But kudos to North Melbourne, like I said. That's a win that they can go, hey, we didn't win this one, but we can take something out of it. And I think for a club like that, they can look forward going into a review this week. And that's what we want to see. So,
yeah.
That's all that we're asking for. And I think if you ask any North Melbourne supporters, they'd be bloody proud of what their mob turned up on the weekend. I tell you what, if you're a Western Bulldog supporter versus Adelaide, they've got the wood on them. They've beat them the last few times down there at Ballarat. And they came out and they did it again and they dominated again. And this just wasn't a couple goal. This was like a 40-point win as well too. But if you have a look at who dominated for the Dogs, it wasn't the Bont. It was Bailey Smith, who's copped a lot over the year, all right? Mr. Instagram himself. He set the world alight. Bailey Dale. It was Liam Jones. Batman came back into it. Tim English. He's going to go ahead with Darcy to get that All-Australian jacket this year for the Ruckman. Caleb Daniels. So the Western Bulldogs dominated a team that had been playing some really awesome football over the week. Now, I don't know whether it was hypothermia. I don't know if it was the massive plane flight from Adelaide to Melbourne and then the long road trip to Ballarat to get to the ground. But just everything that they did from a Western Bulldogs perspective was just gorgeous to watch. It was just exciting football, and they are playing good football. Their barometer is Tom Liberatore. When he is playing well, he was Melbourne's 23rd player grand final day. Because
it's true.
At third quarter, we wouldn't have been able to kick 3 in a minute.
Yeah,
they're playing
exciting footy.
He's also getting in front of the goals. He had another 33 on the weekend at 63. Not the greatest conversion perspective, but you've got to look at it. He's an inside midfielder. He gets the balls. He gets the ball.
Well, each their own.
Job, okay? He might have shit tats, but I'm not going to say it to his face because he is an absolute gun, and I love him. From Adelaide's perspective, look, there really wasn't much to write home about. They were literally defeated across the entire. They lost the contested ball by almost 40. They did within clearances, but they didn't do anything. They didn't get clearances. They didn't have as many contested marks. They almost had half as many shots when it came to on goal. When you only kick 5 goals for the day, nothing's going to win that. And the Bulldogs, they turned it on. They had 30 scoring shots to 23. Actually, 30 scoring shots to 15.
Jeez.
Not much more needs to be said. And I'll tell you what, the Doggies, the way that they're playing at the moment, I almost said they wouldn't make top 8. They're looking at taking probably our slot in the top 4 at the moment because they are humming along nicely.
Mm-hmm.
Hanging along nicely. Fremantle versus Geelong. I'll tell you what, the wankers with anchors over there in Perth were hanging Longmuir out a couple of weeks ago. I remember speaking to the Duck from the Purple Rain podcast. As in his words, we're fucked. That's what he said. Sorry, but that was his words. They've had the last 3 games kicking over 100 points. They're getting some mojo back in the midfield. They're getting their mojo forward as well too. Once again, have a look at who kicked the goal. Jai Miss. Michael Walters kicks goals as well too. Michael Frederick, Mr. Backflips himself. They're starting to get some of that zhuzh that I think we'd been hoping to see, but they weren't able to deliver. Luke Jackson's playing awesome football. Caleb Sarong's once again awesome. Lockie Schultz has been brilliant as that small forward. They can't really do much more than they need to at the moment, Fremantle. And Geelong, I know they've got some personnel out, but they're not ticking right. This would have been a closer game last year. This year, it's just not where it needs to be.
Do you still back him in though?
Geelong?
Yeah.
The thing with Geelong is that they've got, I would say, around 7 to 8 games at GMHBA. That's the only reason I backed them in. If they had to play a mix of home and away, no. But I just know what they're like at GMHBA Stadium. But, Mark, they got beaten by, they had 100 less disposals. When was the last time you saw Geelong have 100 less disposals? When was the last time you saw Geelong beaten in the contested possession? When was the last time you saw their disposal efficiency close to 10% less than their opposition?
A long time.
You saw them being out-tackled, outworked in the hit-outs. And like I said, Sean Darcy will be, with him and Tim English at the moment, pretty much the All-Australian ruckman.
Yeah.
They're just doing everything right. And they're playing Melbourne this week at the MCG. Talk about an 8-point game. Like we throw that around a fair bit, but this is a genuine 8-point game. And once again, if you have to go by, who was the best for Geelong, Isaac Smith, Tom Hawkins, Litzarves, literally the best 3 players are all over the age of 30.
Yeah.
That's where the concern lies.
Yeah.
Really, I think it's going to be a real tough one for Geelong for the remainder of the year. I just don't know. Can't keep relying on Tomahawk. You can't keep relying on Jeremy Cameron. You have to bring in some, and they're not doing that. Where I think some other teams are doing it better. Collingwood, Brisbane, Port Adelaide. They've been bringing in a bit of that youth where Geelong really haven't. Who is Geelong's next key forward?
Cool.
I can't answer that.
I was going to say Brian Myers.
Brian Myers, Brad Close. Exactly right. You can't. Ollie Henry
Single.
can't even get a game. All right,
No.
so they're not looking too good at the moment. All right, hey, Brisbane versus Gold Coast, the Q clash, which look, I thought it was going to be a closer game than this. This was going to be the litmus test for that beautiful club called Gold Coast, and they failed miserably again. But it's Brisbane at Brisbane.
It's like Geelong at Geelong.
Like, they're brutal up there at the moment.
Yeah.
There's not really much more that can be said about this. I think Gold Coast are where they are. They haven't. Their development's almost gone as good as Melbourne's in the last 2 years. And Brisbane are just getting stronger. And the thing with Brisbane, when I look at them, it's just the spread. Like, Danaher was atrocious at the start of the year. He's almost – he would have to be in the All-Australian talk the way he's been setting it up over the last few weeks. Dunkley has made a massive change to that midfield. Don't care what anyone says. That's what I mean. One player can make a massive difference.
Yeah.
Got to be an already established midfield. They were missing that one key defensive component. He's it.
Yeah.
Harley Reid going over to West Coast is not going to make a difference.
No.
At all. So they might be better splitting their top pick for a couple.
That's right.
Will Ashcroft probably had his best game as well too. Charlie Ballard, ever since he got knocked out by Jacob Van Rooyen, his career's flourished. So he has to thank Brew for that as well too.
Exactly.
But they're doing everything that they need to do from a perspective. Brisbane Lions, they just need to keep winning. They can't win the flag unless they play 2 home finals. And they're well on the way to doing that as well too, because a 43-point win against the Suns, whose season is definitely setting rapidly.
Yeah.
What can we do from there? What about this one, big boy? Dreamtime at the G. We had a bit of a chat about it earlier on. First time Essendon have beaten Richmond, I think, in 14 attempts. Nobody loses to Richmond 15 times in a row. And it was Tudor to Ablett in the last couple of seconds in the game. I was driving Maya's boyfriend home to the other side of town. It was 18 points up. I turned it off to listen to a bit of Megadeth, bit of Metallica, bit of Beyonce, to try and zhuzh up the vibe a little bit. Turned it back on after about 15 minutes, and they'd won. So I had to go and watch the replay, and just to see what they did was Charlie Keegan is a massive Essendon supporter. The Facebook page, the Instagram, everything was going, we're back, we're finals bound, etc. Good on them. Absolutely good on them. Can't stand Essendon supporters, you know that, but good on you that your club's giving you some success and giving you some belief, and you are a massive chance to play finals because the end of your year draw is really soft. Almost as soft as my waistline right now, but not as soft. Richmond, well, we know what's happened. Hardwick's gone.
Gone. Just that's it.
Just had to get out of the kitchen.
And bat and ball.
Understandably. So he's taking his bat, he's taking his ball, and he is out of there. And if we don't get to speak about Damien Hardwick again, mate, you have been an absolute star at Richmond. Have the rest of the year off and come over to the Dees because we could use a bit of your excitement over there as well too. A bit of a change in the game plan because we need something as well too. Yeah, Richmond, their season's finished. I picked them not to make the 8. That's going to come true. I'll remind everybody again, I also picked Collingwood not to make the 8, and I'm looking like a complete fool right now as well too. Hey, it was Super Sunday, but it wasn't for the West Coast Eagles. We know they lost by 116 points to Hawthorn. But you know what the best thing about that game? The best thing about that game was, Mark?
What was that?
Bags, bags, bags. We love it when the kids. It was bags, bags, bags. Mitchie Lewis kicks a bag. Bags, bags, bags. We love it when the kick them. How good was it? Mitchie Lewis kicked 6 of his best. It's not often that a player outscores an entire team. And Mitchie Lewis get 6 of the best. It was a proper bag. It wasn't a handful. It was 6. It was exciting. And Hawthorn, like I said, they've got a few kids in that team that really dominated the game. Brockman played his best game or had the highest rating. Mitch Lewis, he kicked 6. What more do you want? But it was Connor Nash, Jai Newcomb, even Frosty had a really good game on the weekend. He was playing against nobody.
Still, crossball is crossball.
When you got 9 Hawthorn players have better rankings than the first West Coast, and then you've got 13 out of the top 19 play, or 13 out of the top 18 players are Hawthorn. Bottom team. That just shows how bad West Coast are, and they won't be liking it over there in Perth. I would love to hear if Was It King from the Eagle Nation could jump on and give us a bit of a heads up what's going over there in Perth, what the stories are. Hawthorn,
I want pitchforks. I want to see pitchforks and lanterns at West Coast.
Nothing is shit than a dump truck of cow manure at the front doors. When was the last time that happened? Richmond?
Oh, Richmond.
We need manure. Bring back the manure.
Bring back the shit.
Hashtag do the poo. Do the poo. Do the poo.
No, they're a rabble over there, but about time.
They are a rebel. Another club that's a bit of a rebel as well too, Mark. Carlton versus Collingwood. It wasn't the high-scoring game. There was only 20 goals kicked between both. But when one team kicked 7-15, the other kicks 13-7, it was poles apart. I don't think anybody thought Carlton could win this one. But once again, just go and watch the highlights. Just even if you do the KO Mini, the Foxtel Mini, the Gary Coleman Mini, the Webster Mini, just go and watch it because they just run in waves. They play just exciting football, and it just makes you – and there's other 18 clubs around the league going, why can't our team do that? Exactly what we did a couple of years ago. They're just exciting to watch. I love everything about them, and I'm not normally saying that about Collingwood. But Carlton, they are the complete opposite. They're plotters. They're arguing amongst themselves. Is Voss – is he tenable? Can they keep him, Mark? What do you reckon?
Oh, I think they have to. They have to keep him purely because if they decide to get rid of him, say, at the end of this year, it would send Carlton to a place where they haven't even been over the last 20 years. Considering they pumped him up, the opportunity to get Ross Lyon, and they didn't get him, even though he was in the box seat. They backed Voss in to elevate this team that's, the best team, on paper that they've had for a long, long time. But if they literally said to Voss at the end of the year, we're going to get rid of you, they need to have someone already signed, sealed and delivered. And that might be someone like it.
Fine, but they told him he had to go through the process.
Yeah. So, sometimes in order to look like a strong board, you make some decisions that are pretty weak. And at the moment, it looks like the decision to tell Ross to go through the process and pick Voss looks like a weak decision, even though to make him, it looks like it's strong. It's not.
Yeah, I thought Ross would have turned it around, but interestingly enough, Jamie the J-Dog Wallis and also a couple of the Portress boys told me that this one would blow up in their faces, I reckon about a year or so ago, and they were absolutely true. So no good. No good. All right, last one before we get into the home stretch, heading into the time on period of this beautiful round 10 review. St Kilda by 12 points over GWS. GWS, once again, they're not playing the worst football of the teams. They'd probably be, I would almost say that they're playing outside of Essendon. They're probably playing the best footy of the teams outside of the 8 as well too. They have had a bit of a shift since Kingsley's taken over as well. It's great to see Toby Green come back for his 200th game as well too. I just absolutely love that bloke till the cows come home. But St Kilda, it was a game that they had to win. That was an 8-point game for them. They had to win this one, otherwise their season would be slipping, and a spot in the 8 would have been slipping away even further, but they were able to nail it. Just takes a little bit of pressure on them. Jack Sinclair, was almost to beat St Kilda, you got to tag Steele. You don't tag the Steele, you got to jag the Sinclair. You tag that mullet, you put a headband around that mullet, and you got a massive chance of winning. But he was absolutely sensational. Rowan Marshall, I spoke to him pre-season down at Sorrento. It was more of a slur because I think we both have had quite a few before we got to it. But he was absolutely sensational as well too. Just dominated across the board, and they were just magnificent. And GWS, they're about where we expect GWS to be. They're not going to.
Yeah, they're on the right path. I mean, they're learning a new structure from Kingsley. It's going to take another year or two. they'll have to be. I think they just need to start doing a bit of rejuvenation the next couple of years as well. I think that a few of their players are probably starting to get a little bit long in the tooth.
Yep.
But I'm sure Kingley's well aware of that. So I wouldn't be surprised if in a couple of years' time that the Giants are knocking towards that 5th or 6th position. But give them time. Like St Kilda, give them time.
Yeah, and St Kilda switched it around a little bit. You remember at the start of the year how they were really run and gunning?
Yes.
They chipped their way through. They had 51 more marks than GWS did on the weekend.
Yeah.
Considering they had 242 kicks and 113 of those were marks, that's you have to be right when it comes to your kicking efficiency, and they went at 73%. So they knew what they were doing, and they just sliced open GWS, just like we sliced open the round 10 version of
Scoreboard!
All right, big boy. Looking to this week's games, looking at heading into round 11. What's caught your eye? And then I've got a couple of listener questions that I want to throw at you.
Yep.
What do you reckon?
Well, first of all, Melbourne Freo, do we boo Lou Jackson or not?
No, you don't boo him. Of course you don't boo him.
Well, just asking the question.
If I boo him, that means I'm getting air into my mouth and it's going to ruin the Grange that I'll be sipping whilst I'm having my 12-year-old vintage cheddar at the ground. So definitely not going to be doing that.
2, should Dimmock coach this week to say, as a way for the fans to say thank you?
No.
No, you think that's it? Once he's done, that's it?
Called it. Yeah, I think he's called it. Who are they playing?
Port. At the G on Sunday.
Coach against you next year's team, maybe? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe.
If Carlton loses to Sydney on Friday night at the SCG, and the Jungle Drums have started to beat already, and he's already got the full support of the board, and they lose by, say, more than 5 goals, does it start to become a bit of a mini orchestra in terms of the Jungle Drums for Vossi?
Do not speak to me like that.
I think that's what it's going to happen, big boy. I think it's going to be all over Red Rover because the supporters will be yelling out, and when the supporters start getting some voice, and at the moment, like I said, there's nothing at the moment to say that it is going to change. I think there might be something. I think it might be end of year. I don't think they'll do it in the middle of the year. There's no point. They've done that too many times. I think they did it with Bolton, Teague. They don't want to do it for their third coach. They'll just do it at the end of the year.
Does that same scenario also work out for Gold Coast and Bulldogs this week for Stewie Jew? Gold Coast are playing Bulldogs in Gold Coast.
Stewie Jew, they need to know who's coming on board. Same thing.
Yeah.
And I reckon Hardwick to Port Adelaide, Hinkley to Gold Coast. I reckon they'd be a perfect fit.
Yep.
A few questions before we wrap this bad boy up. Hey, Mark, the chat has been going cocoa bananas, Mick Malloy style. So, a couple of questions from the J-Dog.
Oh, okay.
My son has flipped footy teams on me this week. Do I try to win the battles or do I make another push later in the year when the tyres are cooled a bit?
Tyres cooled a bit.
Yep. Just let him get it out of his system.
Yep. Tyres cooled a bit.
I agree. Hey, worst case scenario, he can sleep in the backyard until he changes his mind. That's what I do. All right. Question for you, Love Machine. Can you make any waterproof jacket recommendations after Friday night at the Adelaide Oval?
A good blanket, a good poncho / blanket is the alcohol selection at Adelaide Oval is quite more varied than the MCG or Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
So, you could have anything from Byron, first of all, the whole pint imperial schooner system thing in Adelaide's just wrong, but that's a different story. But yeah, I would say I actually had really good seats undercover. So I had very good seats. But you know what? Next time I'll get on the hill. Next time you have to come over. You have to come over.
EU J-Dog will go over. Deal?
Yes.
Deal.
Jackpot Cup.
Yes, the David Roden plate. If you were the number 1 draft pick and you could go to either the Eagles, North or Hawthorn, which club gets you most excited to join?
Hawthorn.
North for me. Is it time for Simpson to move on?
Yes.
Is it time for this podcast to finish up?
Never. We've still got another 17 hours.
I know. We could go all day, all night.
Prime football.
The ladies like it. But, and the men out there too. But, hey, that is Lace Out. That is our round 10 review. Hey, you wanted the best. You got the best. Unfortunately, they weren't around, but Marky P was, the Love Machine. Round of applause. If you want the Love Machine back on again, just chuck a note in the chat because he was an absolute superstar. But cracking week. It's going to be a cracking week of footy this week. Round 11. We're going to start heading into the buys very, very shortly in terms of the restage. But, yeah, some cracking games coming up. I think I'm pretty much looking forward to Melbourne Freo. Definitely looking forward to Gold Coast Western Bulldogs. Last transfer for Gold Coast. Simple as that.
Yes.
And what's going to happen between Adelaide Crows and Brisbane Lions could shake up the rate a little bit. Outside of that, not much else. But Love Machine, great to hear you on board as well. So
Great
from
to be back.
Love Machine, myself, Chris Pepper, the 377-game superstar of the East Keilor Football Club. Make sure if you haven't liked, if you haven't subscribed, if you haven't tweeted, if you haven't swiped right, if you haven't done any of those things, please tell everybody about us. Give us a like on iTunes and Spotify. But last thing, and the only question I have for you, and I know you've been practicing this for weeks, it's simple. Mark Pepper, a.k.a. the Love Machine, a.k.a. the greatest brother in the world. How do you want your footy?
Lace out.
Have a great week, listeners. Hope you do. Oh, that was smooth. Thanks for listening to the latest episode of Lace Out. Head over to iTunes and Spotify to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. And remember, join us every single Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time on our Facebook page with yours truly, Christopher Pepper, and the co-host with the most, Jamie Wallis, giving you your footy how you want it. Lace out.